everyone. Welcome back to the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for the latest episode of Broncos Now. As always, I'm your host, Sydney Jones, and coming up on today's episode, we'll take a look at some of the top highlights from today's practice. Plus, head coach Sean Payton gives an update on running back Javonte Williams. All that and more coming up. Broncos held their 15th training camp practice here at Centura Health Training Center today for their first padded practice this week. And as the team heads out to San Francisco for their second preseason game later in the week, head coach Sean Payton gave an update today on Javonte Williams.
Yeah, he's doing well. We'll have a plan. I plan on playing him. You know, we'll see pitch count-wise towards the end of the week. We'll be smart. But I do see him getting to play some.
The team only has 2 more days left of training camp, but are still nearly a month away from the start of the season. And at this point in the year, head coach Sean Payton said they're still installing their system.
We're still in installation. Today, we're installing another group of third down plays, another group of red zone plays. So we've already done red zone third down, but not the whole package. So today they got a little bit more red zone, a little bit more third down. And then as we get closer to the season, you'll see us customize a little bit more.
We also heard from fullback Michael Burton following practice today for the first time, and he detailed why Sean Payton likes the fullback position so much.
I think it goes back to my first point, is that versatility. I think you got to be able to guy who can go out there and do different things. Like if you go out in 21 personnel, you're not just running the ball. Maybe you can line up wide. You can line a guy up. He can run routes. He can catch the ball. So you're not giving the defenses a cue, right? Like it's not just automatically run. And then a guy who can play special teams, who can pick up, 12, 15, 18 snaps a game on special teams is very, very valuable. So I think it's a whole versatile thing that he probably, values the best.
And now that we've seen some of those younger guys play in their first NFL game, this week of practice in the Broncos' second preseason game will be crucial for some of those players.
They play their first game. We make the corrections, and we're like, hey, this is, I said we're in a little bit of a race, especially for those players. We got to see that improvement now, week 2. And a lot of times it's in the kicking game. So there is a sense of urgency for those players.
Now joining me here inside the Broncos podcast studio is Broncos lead writer Eric Talala. Eric, before we look at practice today, I want to talk about Javonte Williams. Head coach Sean Payton confirmed today that he will be playing in the Broncos' second preseason game on Saturday. Exciting news.
Yeah, very exciting. Obviously, Javonte suffers that horrible, devastating injury last year against the Raiders. People say, hey, is it going to be a full year? Is it going to be 18 months? Is he going to play at all in 2023? There's all sorts of speculation out there. Javonte Williams comes back. He beats the timetable. He's out there for the offseason program. He's out there at the start of training camp and avoids the physically unable to perform list. And now it sounds like is going to make his return to game action on Saturday against the 49ers. Yeah. Sid, we've seen how good he's looked out there at training camp. I personally have been surprised just by the burst, the explosiveness. Sometimes you think that's going to take a while for guys to come back from something like that, and he's just, I think, blown a lot of people away. We don't know how many snaps he's going to play yet, right? Sean Payton said they're going to figure that out later in the week. They're going to be smart with him. Obviously, you don't want any sort of setback here. But this is a chance for Javonte Williams to get his feet wet, to play some real tackle football. And we've heard him talk about that he's ready and say he can't wait to go out there and play. I'm excited to see him, no matter how many carries he gets on Saturday.
Me too. And mentally, I feel like he's really ready. It seems like he has a really good mindset heading into this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think part of that, right, is how the Broncos have handled this whole thing with Bo Lowry, kind of leading that medical team, the player performance.
For sure.
But there's a balance here, right, of playing it slow with a guy and making sure they're ready to come back, but also not taking too long where you start to question things mentally. And I think they've done a great job of working him back in there. He talked about from the second he took his first team carry during training camp, he knew he was good to go. He's got that, that mental strength. He said there were times in the offseason he questioned things and was kind of down on himself. We know he's not there anymore. He's feeling good about this. I'm sure he cannot wait to get out there and lower his shoulder into somebody.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to watch on Saturday for sure. Eric, the team was back in full pads today for the first time this week. So, overall, what'd you just think about the work the team put in today?
Yeah, again, you saw some guys come back to practice, so that's important. You saw Pat Surtain, Cortland Sutton, those types of guys come back to practice. DJ Jones working his way through concussion protocol. we do still have a decent number of guys who are out, especially in that secondary. Caden Stearns was out for part of practice. Kareem Jackson looked like he maybe had a vet day based on what he was doing. K'Wan Williams not out there. So it's hard to get a complete picture, right, when you're missing that many high-quality guys. But, again, I thought the offense did a decent job, a nice job. Russell Wilson had a nice pass down the seam to Greg Dulcich at one point that I thought was an impressive play. We've talked about Greg the last couple of days now too. We heard all this stuff about the Joker and Sean Payton's offense, and he said that'll come for Greg Dulcich and his role on game day. But I think you've seen him take a step here the last couple of days. So that stood out. And then end of game scenarios, again, we've seen the Broncos work on that so much. The 2-minute drill. Today's situation was the Broncos need 3 points with less than 2 minutes left. They've got to drive down the field. First team offense, they didn't get it maybe quite as far as they'd want to, but they gave Brett Maher a chance to hit a really long field goal, 59-yard attempt. He drilled it, Sydney. And it probably would have been good from 65, hit off the top of a tent behind the field goal post that was several yards back there. Then he follows it up, hits another long one, I think 52, 53 yards. So the kicking competition there kind of stands out to me because team waives injures. Elliott Fry. Brett is the only kicker currently on the roster. And Sean Payton said, listen, he had a really good day. We're still going to be evaluating all around the league. And so as I think about practice today, he had a nice practice. And listen, he's competing against himself right now, but also competing against all those other guys out there.
100%. And thank you, Eric, for addressing the kicking game, because I know our fans have been wondering about that, especially since the last preseason game. Outside of that, Eric, looking at some of the younger guys, I know we've talked a little bit about that earlier this week as well. Now that they've played a preseason game, how important really is this week leading into the second game for them? Yeah,
good question. I think part of the NFL, right, is doing something out there on a game day and then being able to make corrections during the week and improving during the week. And it can't just be, hey, my play stays at one level the whole season. And so Sean Payton talked about that and guys using this week to improve, taking corrections, implementing them into your game. We've heard him say that the preseason reps count a little bit more than they do, than the practice reps do. But still, it's important to be able to take what you did in that preseason game against the Cardinals and either correct it, or if you played well and did things the coaches liked, carry that forward into this week and then against San Francisco. And he said particularly special teams is where that plays in. And you look at the kicking game and how many guys have made careers in the NFL just based off their special teams performance. Obviously, the biggest one here in Denver, right, is Terrell Davis and his special teams tackle way back when. But this is it can't be one game and it can't be one practice. These guys have to learn how to stack days if they want a chance to, one, make the roster and two, contribute.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in other news, Eric, the vote is in for the Pro Football Hall of Fame Coach Contributor Committee. And of course, as we know, Mike Shanahan and Dan Reeves are both finalists for that. It has been reported that, the official confirmation won't come out until tomorrow, though.
Yes, as we're recording this, we haven't heard anything yet. Hopefully nothing leaks after we post this.
I know.
Listen, both guys very deserving. Dan Reeves, obviously, I think 9 overall Super Bowl appearances, 3 with the Broncos as head coach. We know Mike Shanahan. I believe he's one of 2 coaches who's won back-to-back Super Bowls who's not yet in the Hall of Fame. Bill Belichick's the other one, and he's obviously still an active coach. Just an all-time winningest coach in franchise history, Mike Shanahan is. Both guys very deserving. We've heard Sean Payton talk about the influence Mike Shanahan and his offensive system has both on Payton and the league as a whole. We've seen his coaching tree. We can go on and on and on. But there's a lot of deserving candidates. And so of those 12 people they're deciding between, one person's going to be named a finalist, and then they'll be up for official induction ahead of the Super Bowl. But this is, by and large, kind of the biggest hurdle you've got to get over. If you get past this hurdle, you've got a really great chance of making it into the Hall of Fame. And Sydney, both Mike Shanahan and Dan Reeves, very deserving. And hopefully Broncos country gets some good news about either one of those guys.
Yep, hope so too. And we'll be patiently awaiting that news tomorrow. Eric, appreciate you coming on the show today.
You got it, Sid.
Plus, we heard from outside linebacker Jonathan Cooper today, and he detailed what his focus at camp is this year.
Just working on my explosiveness. I feel like being more confident as a pass rusher, really honing into what I do well. After having those first 2 years under my belt, I feel like I've finally got the experience to figure out what it is that I do well and the reps that I went on, and to just improve on those things. Definitely just want to make sure that I'm that game-changing pass rusher that I'm trying to bring to the Broncos, and then also just working out in space and just getting more comfortable with that.
Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Broncos Now, Broncos Country. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll meet you right back here on the Broncos Podcast Network and YouTube for another episode tomorrow. See you all then.